Have you ever stood in a bookstore or a library and felt that incredible sense of wonder? That feeling that all the world's stories, all its secrets, are right there at your fingertips? Well, imagine a place that didn't just contain some of the world's knowledge, but was said to contain asterisk. All asterisk of it. Today, we're journeying back in time to uncover the legend of the great Library of Alexandria. This wasn't just a building with scrolls. It was the intellectual heart of the ancient world, founded around the 3rd century BCE in Egypt. Under the rule of the Ptolemaic dynasty, the Library of Alexandria was an unprecedented project. Its goal was breathtakingly ambitious: to collect all the knowledge of humankind under one roof. Think about that for a second. Not just Greek philosophy or Egyptian history, but everything. Every play, every poem, every scientific treatise, every map, from every culture they could reach. How did they do it? Well, they were relentless. Ships docking in Alexandria's harbor were required to hand over any books they carried. Scribes would then meticulously copy them, keeping the original for the library and returning the copy to the owner. Agents were sent across the Mediterranean and beyond, hunting for rare texts to purchase or copy. It's estimated that at its peak, the library held hundreds of thousands of scrolls. It was more than a repository. It was a vibrant research center. The greatest minds of the age, like Euclid, the father of geometry, and Eratosthenes, who calculated the circumference of the earth with stunning accuracy, worked and studied within its walls. It was the ancient world's equivalent of a super university and a global research institute combined. So, what happened to it? This is where history becomes shrouded in myth. There isn't one single, dramatic story of its destruction. Instead, the library's decline was a slow, tragic process spanning centuries. A fire during Julius Caesar's civil war in 48 BCE is often blamed, but this likely only damaged a warehouse of scrolls, not the main library itself. Later, imperial budget cuts, religious purges, and regional conflicts all took their toll. The library faded away, its collections scattered, repurposed, or simply lost to time. We have no definitive archaeological remains, no grand ruins to visit. It exists almost entirely in the accounts of ancient writers. The loss is immeasurable. Imagine the works of science, history, and art that vanished forever. Plays by Sophocles. We'll never see. Scientific discoveries we had to make all over again centuries later. But the physical loss is only part of the story. The asterisk idea of the Library of Alexandria has never left us. It speaks to a deep, fundamental human desire. The dream of gathering all knowledge in one place, of understanding everything. From the first encyclopedia to the modern internet, we are still chasing that Alexandrian dream. We build digital archives, global networks, and vast databases, all in an effort to collect, connect, and comprehend our world. The Library of Alexandria may be gone, but its spirit lives on in every click, every search, and every time we share information. It is a timeless reminder that the quest for knowledge is one of humanity's greatest and most enduring adventures. See you next time. Imagine a world where all the knowledge of humanity could be gathered in one place. One man had this dream, and his successors made it a reality. This isn't a fantasy novel. It's the incredible true story of the Library of Alexandria. Our story begins not with a book, but with a sword. In 332 BC, a young conqueror named Alexander the Great stood on the coast of Egypt. Where others saw just sand and sea, he saw the future. He envisioned a magnificent city, a crossroads of cultures and commerce, a beacon of Greek civilization in the heart of the ancient world. He named it after himself, Alexandria. Alexander's vision was grand, but his time was short. After his death, his vast empire was carved up by his generals. Egypt fell to his clever and ambitious companion, Ptolemy, and his descendants. The Ptolemaic dynasty would rule Egypt for nearly 300 years, not as pharaohs of old, but as Greek kings, and they were determined to make Alexander's dream city the intellectual capital of the world. To do this, they needed more than just beautiful buildings and bustling ports. They needed ideas. Ptolemy I, inspired by the philosophical schools of Athens, conceived of an unprecedented project. A universal library. His goal was nothing less than to collect all the books in the known world, translated into Greek. Under his son, Ptolemy II, this vision exploded into reality. The Great Library of Alexandria was established as part of a larger research institution called the Museum, or Shrine of the Muses. It wasn't just a warehouse for scrolls. It was a vibrant community of scholars, scientists, poets, and thinkers, all funded by the royal treasury. Imagine a university, a think tank, and a national library all rolled into one. The Ptolemies were obsessed with acquiring scrolls. Agents were sent across the Mediterranean to buy or copy any text they could find. The methods were sometimes aggressive. A famous decree stated that any ship docking in Alexandria's harbor had to surrender its books. They would be meticulously copied by scribes, with the copies returned to the owners and the originals kept for the library. This policy, though a bit ruthless, helped the collection swell at an astonishing rate. At its peak, it's estimated the library held hundreds of thousands of papyrus scrolls. That's an almost unimaginable amount of information for the ancient world. Here, the Hebrew Bible was first translated into Greek, known as the Here, Eratosthenes calculated the circumference of the earth with stunning accuracy. Here, Euclid wrote the Elements, the foundational textbook for geometry for over 2 millennia. Here, the very foundations of astronomy, medicine, literature, and mathematics were laid. The Library of Alexandria wasn't just a building filled with scrolls. It was a living, breathing testament to human curiosity and the power of shared knowledge. It was a bold declaration that the wealth of a nation wasn't just in its gold, but in its ideas. It was the first true city of light, illuminating the world with the brilliance of the human mind. The story of its tragic decline is for another day, but its founding remains one of the most inspiring chapters in our collective human story. It sounds like science fiction, but this was the magnificent dream of the ancient world. Long before the internet, before even the printing press, the greatest minds in history embarked on a quest for universal learning, a quest to gather every story, every discovery, and every idea into one place. This grand ambition wasn't confined to one culture. It was a global phenomenon. In ancient Mesopotamia, scribes etched cuneiform onto clay tablets, creating the first organized collections of knowledge. Think of it, thousands of tablets detailing laws, myths, and astronomical observations, forming a library of clay. At the same time, in ancient Egypt, papyrus scrolls held the secrets of the pharaohs, from sacred texts like the Book of the Dead to complex medical procedures. These scrolls were precious, guarded in temple archives known as the Houses of Life. The journey of knowledge continued eastward. In ancient India, palm leaf manuscripts preserved epic poems like the Mahabharata and profound philosophical treatises. These collections weren't just stored. They were living centers of learning, where scholars would gather to debate and expand upon ancient wisdom. And in China, under the Qin and Han dynasties, there were monumental efforts to compile and catalog knowledge onto bamboo slips and later, silk scrolls. The emperor's library was a symbol of power, a testament to the idea that controlling knowledge meant controlling the world. But perhaps the most famous chapter of this story unfolded in the sun-drenched city of Alexandria. Here, in Greece's cultural heartland in Egypt, the dream of universal learning reached its zenith with the Great Library of Alexandria. This wasn't just a building with scrolls, it was a revolutionary idea. Its mission was to acquire a copy of every book in the known world. Ships docking in the harbor were searched, and any scrolls found were copied by a legion of scribes before being returned to their owners. The library became a magnet for the brightest minds of the era. Imagine walking its halls and bumping into Euclid, the father of geometry, as he finalized his Elements, a book that would shape mathematics for over 2 millennia. You might see Archimedes, the brilliant inventor and physicist, rushing to his study, shouting Eureka. After a breakthrough, you could listen to a lecture by a hero of Alexandria, an engineering genius who designed the world's first steam engine and automatic doors, concepts that seemed like magic at the time. These scholars weren't just hoarding knowledge, they were creating it, debating it, and building upon it. The Library of Alexandria was the ancient world's internet, its Google, and its university all rolled into one. It was a place where a mathematician from Greece could study astronomy from Babylon and philosophy from India. It was the ultimate melting pot of ideas, proving that when knowledge is shared, it multiplies. The dream of these ancient libraries, from the clay tablets of Mesopotamia to the papyrus scrolls of Alexandria, is a powerful reminder. It tells us that the human thirst for knowledge is timeless. These early pioneers laid the foundation for every library, university, and search engine we have today. They believed that by gathering and sharing knowledge, we could build a better, wiser world. That noble quest, started thousands of years ago, continues with every book we read and every new thing we learn. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. Have you ever looked at the pyramids of Giza or the complex gears of the Antikythera mechanism and wondered, how did they do that? We often think of history as a straight line, a constant march of progress. But what if that's not the whole story? What if ancient civilizations knew far more than we give them credit for? And what if much of that knowledge has been lost to time? Imagine this, a world where brilliant minds, centuries before the Renaissance, had already mapped the stars with incredible accuracy, understood advanced mathematics, and even practiced forms of medicine that were only now rediscovered. This isn't just science fiction. It's a tantalizing possibility supported by historical clues. Let's talk about the Library of Alexandria. Its destruction is one of history's greatest tragedies. We know it housed hundreds of thousands of scrolls, but what exactly did they contain? Historians believe it was a repository of knowledge from across the ancient world. We're talking about detailed astronomical charts, complex mathematical treatises, and medical texts that could have revolutionized human health. We have fragments and references, whispers of works that describe a universe far more complex than the one officially accepted at the time. Think of Aristarchus of Samos, over 2,000 years ago. He proposed a heliocentric modeled idea that the Earth revolves around the Sun. This was nearly 1,800 years before Copernicus. His original work is lost, and we only know about it from the writings of others, like Archimedes. How many other groundbreaking ideas like this were recorded on scrolls that are now just dust and ash? What scientific revolutions could have happened centuries, or even millennia, earlier? It's like the myth of a Da Vinci. Before Da Vinci, we celebrate Leonardo for his genius in art, anatomy, and engineering. But clues suggest that many of his ideas weren't entirely new. He studied and built upon ancient texts that survived. Could there have been figures just as brilliant, just as visionary, whose notebooks and blueprints were lost in fires, floods, or simply rotted away? Think of Roman concrete, a formula so durable that structures like the Pantheon still stand today, while modern concrete crumbles in a fraction of that time. We're only now beginning to reverse engineer its secrets. This isn't about saying our modern science is wrong. It's about acknowledging that the path of knowledge isn't always linear. There were peaks of incredible insight in our ancient past. Perhaps they didn't have iPhones, but they had a deep, profound understanding of the world around them, expressed through mathematics, astronomy, and medicine. Their legacy isn't just in the monuments they left behind, but in the frustrating, inspiring, and humbling questions they pose. What else did they know? And what else have we forgotten? The search for this lost knowledge continues, hidden in ancient texts, buried ruins, and the enduring mysteries of our ancestors. It reminds us that there's always more to learn, and sometimes the best way to look forward is to look back. Have you ever wondered what humanity has lost? What knowledge, what stories, what scientific breakthroughs have vanished from history forever? Today, we're journeying back in time to the heart of the ancient world, to the legendary Library of Alexandria, and uncovering the tragic tale of its destruction. This isn't a simple story of one fire, but a slow, painful decay over centuries. So, let's start with the most famous culprit, Julius Caesar, in 48 BCE. While pursuing his rival Pompey in Alexandria, Caesar set fire to the Egyptian fleet in the harbor. Did this fire spread and consume the entire library? The truth is a bit more complicated. Most contemporary accounts, like those from Seneca, suggest that while the fire did cause damage, it likely destroyed warehouses near the port containing scrolls ready for export, not the main library building itself. The library, the Great Mausoleum, probably survived this incident, albeit the real decline was a story of slow neglect and repeated blows. Throughout the Roman period, the library's funding and prestige dwindled. Imperial politics shifted, and the intellectual center of the world gradually lost its patrons. Then came a major turning point in the late 3rd century CE, during the wars of Emperor Aurelian to retake the city. The Brauchian Quarter, where the main library was located, was devastated. Many historians believe this was the true, catastrophic end for the Great Library. Any surviving collections were likely scattered or destroyed in the chaos of urban warfare. But what about the Serapeum, the daughter library located in another part of Alexandria? This smaller but still significant collection faced its own demise under rising Christian influence. In 391 CE, Emperor Theodosius issued decrees outlawing pagan practices. Fueled by this imperial edict, the Patriarch of Alexandria led a mob that destroyed the Serapeum temple. While their primary target was the pagan temple itself, it is widely believed that the scrolls and codices housed within were also destroyed or dispersed during this act of religious zeal. This marked another devastating loss of ancient knowledge. Finally, let us address a persistent myth: the story that Muslim conquerors burned the library in the 7th century. The tale goes that the Caliph Omar declared, "If these books agree with the Quran, they are redundant. If they disagree, they are heretical. Destroy them." It's a dramatic story, but there is one major problem. It doesn't appear in any historical sources until over 500 years after the event. Most modern scholars dismiss this as a later fabrication, a piece of propaganda. By the time of the Arab conquest, the Great Library and even its daughter library were likely long gone, victims of fire, war, and changing times. The destruction of the Library of Alexandria wasn't a single event, but a death by 1,000 cuts, from Caesar's fire to Roman civil wars and religious conflict. The greatest repository of knowledge in the ancient world was chipped away until nothing remained. It is a powerful reminder of how fragile knowledge can be and how crucial it is to preserve our shared cultural heritage for future generations. Have you ever thought about how much knowledge has been lost to time? It's a staggering, almost unimaginable concept. For thousands of years, humanity's greatest stories, discoveries, and wisdom were passed down, not through books, but through spoken word. An elder would sit with the young, weaving tales of heroes, teaching the secrets of the stars, and explaining which plants could heal and which could harm. This was the power of oral tradition. It was alive, dynamic, and deeply personal. Every retelling was a performance, a unique moment shared between storyteller and listener. The knowledge was embedded in memory, carried in the hearts and minds of an entire community. But this method, as beautiful as it was, had a critical weakness: its fragility. A single forgotten line, a migration, a plague, or a war could sever the chain of knowledge forever. Entire libraries of oral history, poetry, and science could vanish with the last person who held them. Imagine a world where the only copy of your favorite book was in someone's head. If they were gone, the story would be gone too. That was the reality for most of human history. We can only guess at the epics that were never written down, the scientific insights that faded before they could be tested, the profound philosophies that were spoken once and then lost to the wind. Then came the invention of writing. This was a revolution. Suddenly, knowledge could be captured, frozen in time on stone, clay, or papyrus. It could be copied, transported across vast distances, and stored for future generations. It no longer depended solely on the fallible human memory. The Library of Alexandria, for instance, wasn't just a building full of scrolls. It was a monumental attempt to gather all the world's knowledge in one place, to protect it from being lost. Written traditions gave knowledge a kind of permanence, a physical body that could outlive its creators. However, writing is not a perfect solution. Even read knowledge is surprisingly fragile. Scrolls burn, stone tablets erode, and digital files corrupt. The burning of the Library of Alexandria is a classic, heart-wrenching example. How many plays, histories, and scientific treatises were turned to ash? We'll never know. And it's not just about catastrophic events. Languages die out, leaving behind texts we can no longer decipher. Context is lost, and what was once a clear instruction becomes a cryptic puzzle. Just think about all the dead links on the internet today. Modern form of knowledge decay. Information is everywhere, but wisdom, the deep understanding of that information, is still as delicate as ever. So, where does that leave us today? We live in an age of information overload. We have the internet, a seemingly infinite library at our fingertips. But are we any better at preserving wisdom? In some ways, yes. We can back up data, share it globally in an instant, and collaborate on a scale our ancestors couldn't dream of. But we also face new challenges. The sheer volume of information can be overwhelming, making it hard to distinguish truth from noise. Digital formats become obsolete. Perhaps the greatest lesson from the past is that preserving knowledge isn't just about storage. It's an active, ongoing process. It's about curation, translation, and most importantly, about teaching and sharing. It requires us to continually engage with the wisdom of the past, to discuss it, to challenge it, and to pass it on, not just as data, but as living, breathing understanding. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through time. Have you ever wondered what happened to all the amazing books from ancient Greece and Rome? We've all heard about the tragic loss of the Library of Alexandria, a place that held the sum of human knowledge. It's a heartbreaking thought, losing masterpieces of philosophy, science, and poetry forever. But what if I told you that many of these lost works aren't completely gone? What if they survived in the most unexpected ways, like secret messages hidden in plain sight? The story of their survival is a detective novel spanning 1,000 years. After the fall of the Western Roman Empire, Europe entered a period where many of these classical texts were forgotten or neglected. The scrolls and books that once filled grand libraries were scattered. Papyrus, the main writing material, was fragile and decayed easily. So, how did anything survive? One of the most fascinating ways was through something called a pal. Imagine a medieval monk needing parchment to write down a prayer or a chronicle. Parchment, made from animal skin, was incredibly expensive. So, what did they do? They'd take an old book, maybe a treatise on astronomy by a Greek scholar, and scrape the ink off the page to reuse it. For centuries, the new text hid the old one underneath. It's only with modern technology, like ultraviolet light and multispectral imaging, that we can now read the faint, scraped-off words of the original text, revealing lost poems of Sappho or mathematical works of Archimedes. It's like literary archaeology, but scraping and recycling wasn't the only way. Many works survived because someone, somewhere, thought they were important enough to copy. Small monastic libraries across Europe became crucial safe havens, with monks meticulously copying texts by hand. However, the real game changer happened in a different part of the world. Welcome to the Islamic Golden Age. While Europe was in the so-called Dark Ages, cities like Baghdad, Cairo, and Cordoba were blazing centers of learning and innovation. Scholars in the Arab world had an immense hunger for knowledge. They launched a massive translation movement, seeking out and translating Greek texts on medicine, mathematics, philosophy, and astronomy into Arabic. They didn't just translate. They studied, criticized, and expanded upon these works. Thinkers like Aristotle, Galen, and Ptolemy became household names in Baghdad long before they were rediscovered in Paris or Oxford. The House of Wisdom in Baghdad wasn't just a library. It was a vibrant intellectual hub that effectively became a second, even better, library for humanity's ancient knowledge. So, the knowledge was safe, but it was mostly in Arabic. How did it get back to Europe? This is where the next chapter of our story begins. The Renaissance. Starting in the late Middle Ages, European scholars, particularly in Spain and Italy, began to come into contact with the Islamic world. They discovered this treasure trove of Arabic translations. A new wave of translation began, this time from Arabic back into Latin, the scholarly language of Europe. Suddenly, European thinkers had access to a flood of ancient Greek ideas that they thought were lost forever. This rediscovery fueled the Renaissance. Artists, scientists, and philosophers were directly inspired by these rediscovered works. Copernicus drew on ancient Greek astronomical models, and Renaissance doctors studied the advanced medical knowledge preserved and enhanced by Arab physicians. It was like a long-lost conversation was suddenly picked up again, leading to an explosion of creativity and scientific progress that shaped the modern world. So, The next time you read a classic work of philosophy or hear about a scientific principle from antiquity, remember its incredible journey. It survived through fragments, hidden texts, and the tireless work of scholars across cultures and centuries who believed that knowledge was too precious to be lost. It's a powerful reminder that we are all part of a single, continuous story of human curiosity. Remember the Library of Alexandria, the legendary hub of all human knowledge, tragically lost to history. Imagine all those scrolls, plays, scientific discoveries just gone. Today, we're in the middle of building its successor, not with stone and papyrus, but with servers, code, and countless terabytes of data. This is the story of our digital Alexandria, and whether we're doomed to repeat the past. Every second, we create an unimaginable amount of information. Photos, videos, scientific papers, every tweet, every blog post. It's a digital avalanche. Organizations like the Internet Archive are on a heroic mission, trying to save a copy of everything. Their Wayback Machine is like a time machine for the internet, letting you see websites as they were years ago. It's an incredible tool, preserving our digital culture for future generations. But this new library is far more fragile than the old one. It's not fire we have to worry about, but something much more subtle, the Hitaldica. Have you ever tried to open an old file, only to find the format is no longer supported, or found a link to a fascinating article, but it just leads to a 404 not found error? That's called link rot. Data can get corrupted. Hardware fails. Servers can be shut down. Unlike a stone tablet, a digital file needs constant maintenance just to exist. Think about it. Your old family photos on a floppy disk, probably unreadable. That mixtape on a cassette. It's degrading. Our digital heritage is built on a constantly shifting foundation of technology. The very systems we use to store information become obsolete in a blink of an eye. We're in a race against time, constantly migrating data from old formats to new ones, just to keep it alive. It's like a librarian having to rewrite every single book every 10 years, just to prevent the ink from fading. And there's another threat, one Alexandria never faced. Centralization. Much of our digital world is controlled by a handful of giant tech companies. If one of them decides to change their policy, or goes out of business, vast chunks of our collective memory could disappear overnight. We saw a small version of this when Vine shut down, and millions of creative videos vanished. What if that happened on a much larger scale? So, are we destined to lose it all again? Maybe not. We're getting smarter. We're developing more robust storage methods, decentralized networks, and open-source formats designed for longevity. Projects are underway to encode data into synthetic DNA, which could potentially last for thousands of years. We are actively fighting against the digital darkness. The spirit of Alexandria is alive, but its survival isn't guaranteed. It depends on us, on supporting the digital archivists, on demanding better standards for preservation, and on valuing our shared digital history, a dream that's thousands of years old, yet feels more relevant today than ever before. It's the dream of Alexandria. When we think of the great Library of Alexandria, we often picture a single, magnificent building. But it was so much more. It was an idea, a grand ambition to collect all the world's knowledge under one roof. Imagine scrolls from across the known world, containing everything from philosophy and astronomy to poetry and mathematics. It was humanity's first attempt at a global brain, a place where any question could be asked and, hopefully, answered. The tragic fire that destroyed much of the library is one of history's greatest losses. We mourn the lost plays of Sophocles, the forgotten scientific treatises, the histories we eyed. But here's the thing. The physical library might be gone, but its spirit, its core mission, is indestructible. The dream of Alexandria didn't die in the flames. It simply scattered, like seeds in the wind, waiting to take root again. And eat. Dith. Think about the monasteries of the Middle Ages, where monks painstakingly copied ancient texts, preserving flickers of knowledge through dark times. Think about the Renaissance, with its explosion of learning and the invention of the printing press, which suddenly made knowledge accessible to the masses. Each of these moments was a rebirth of Alexandria's dream. Each library, each university, each printing press was a new Alexandria. Smaller perhaps, but fueled by the same fire. Now, look around you. Look at the device you're watching this on. We are living in the most Alexandrian age in history. The internet is the ultimate library. A sprawling, chaotic, and beautiful collection of human knowledge, creativity, and connection. Every search we make, every article we read, every video we watch is a continuation of that ancient quest. We are all librarians and scholars, curating our own little corners of this vast digital archive. The founders of Alexandria believed that by gathering all knowledge, they could create a kind of collective immortality. And in a way, they were right. The ideas, the stories, the discoveries, they outlived their creators. Plato still speaks to us. Archimedes still teaches us. Sappho still moves us. Their thoughts have been passed down through generations, transcribed, translated, and now digitized. This is the true immortality they sought, not for the individual, but for the mind, for the species. Knowledge isn't just a collection of facts. It's the thread that connects us to our past and paves the way for our future. It's our shared inheritance and our greatest legacy. Every time we learn something new, every time we share an idea, we are tending to that ancient flame. We are keeping the dream of Alexandria alive. It's a reminder that while empires may fall and buildings may crumble, the human thirst for understanding is eternal. So, the next time you fall down a Wikipedia rabbit hole or learn a new skill online, take a moment to appreciate it. You're part of a tradition that stretches all the way back to a sun-drenched city on the coast of Egypt. You are a keeper of the dream. Thanks so much for joining me on this little journey through time. If you enjoyed this, please consider liking the video and subscribing for more thoughts on history and ideas. It really helps the channel grow. See you in the next one.